that time I did not have pertinent information as to their potential role or involvement here in the city. Doing some more digging, sought some more information. Once the names of the people who were shot yesterday by the federal officers came out, we were able to do some investigating on our part to see if there was any nexus or relationship with the Portland Police Bureau or regional partners. I can confirm, first and foremost, that these two individuals are in stable condition. They are still hospitalized. They are in custody of the federal law enforcement, but grateful that they appear to be on the road to recovery, and I'm grateful for that. They do have some nexus to involvement with TDA. We can confirm that. We know that we had a shooting in Northeast Portland in July of this year, and the victim in that shooting was self-identified as a Venezuelan immigrant who informed us that the suspects in that shooting were associated with TDA. Based upon that, we've been working that case. It's an ongoing investigation, but we have been working that case, and there's also been involvement with the two people who were shot yesterday by the federal officers through some criminal cases out in Washington County. So this is a regional effort as we look at this group affiliation and the potential for violence that has occurred. And it's still ongoing, so I don't have details. And what I can say is there is an association with the two folks yesterday and TDA. I hesitated to even share this information initially because I'm very aware of the historic injustice of victim blaming, oftentimes portrayed by law enforcement, including this very agency that I've represented so proudly for so many years. And historically, we have not been quick to disclose the potential criminal history of others. But I felt it was imperative because I was asked yesterday in the news conference what information we have. This is information we have. This in no way draws a through line to the actions or the behaviors that occurred yesterday. I want to speak for just a moment specifically to my Latino community. It saddens me that we even have to qualify these remarks, because I understand, or at least have attempted to understand through your voices, your concern, your fear, your anger. This information in no way is meant to disparage or to condone or support or agree with any of the actions that occurred yesterday. But it is important that we stay committed to the rule of law, that we stay committed to the facts, that we stay a trustworthy and legitimate police department for all of Portlanders. We are currently involved in this investigation with our federal partners, of which I'm very grateful for. And we have been able to assist and provide perspective and have a small area of participation as this investigation continues. I am proud of the relationships we have with our federal partners. We have relied upon them in many ways through the enforcement of human trafficking, fentanyl, gun violence, etc. And I have appreciated their work on a local level, and their willingness to have us engage in the investigation at this time, I think, is a demonstration of that ongoing relationship and information sharing. I believe in doing so, this will help hopefully bring some transparency to the process for Portlanders to be able to recognize. I'm also in regular communication with the district attorney and Attorney General Dan Rayfield, and their teams as well are supporting and participating in this process. When I say participating, I want to be clear. This is not a parallel investigation by the Portland Police Bureau. We are present, but we are not conducting our own independent investigation. That's not our role in this, and it would not be the necessary information to do that would not be made available to us because we're dependent upon that participation and cooperation with our federal partners. But we are at the table, and we are learning as we go, and hopefully, because this is new territory for us, that once the investigation is completed, there'll be an opportunity to share that information holistically. I can't speak to that currently. So with all that, I think we're ready for a few questions.
Yeah, we'll do we have about 10 minutes or so for questions and answers. And as Chief mentioned, when it comes to the criminal group Tren de Aragua, we cannot get in to great detail about these cases because they're open and ongoing. So I just hope you keep that in mind, and also just know how the questions might resonate with our Latino community, one that obviously the Chief has a great relationship with. So with that, we'll open up to questions and answers. Please state your name, who you're with, and who the question's for. And we'll have Chief do his best to repeat the question for the cameras as well. We'll start with Maxine.
Two questions. One, the July shooting in Northeast Portland, where was that? And can you describe the circumstances? And my second question is, when Portland police arrived at the medical office after the first 911 call, were there federal officers that stayed there that police interacted with?
Okay, so question one, Max, I understand, was the shooting in Northeast Dayton location, July 11th, 2025, at Northeast 81st and Mason. I don't have the reports in front of me. There's just some notes that I have, but Mike can track down, the reports or things that we need on that. In regards to our arrival at the shooting scene itself at 101 in Maine, your question was whether or not federal officers were still present upon our arrival. Is that correct? And I'm going to ask Assistant Chief Simon just to answer that question. He was out on scene yesterday. And can you answer that?
Yep. Rob Simon, the Assistant Chief of Investigations, and yes, they were still on scene when we arrived.
The Customs and Border Patrol?
Yes.
How many?
Initially, there was at least 7 or 8. Then that number quickly grew as their investigative team showed up from various other federal agencies.
And the black car that was left behind at that scene, was that belonging to the federal officers?
Since that's so integral to the part of the investigation, I'm going to limit that comment and not disclose that at this time.
Adrian?
Thanks.
Chief Adrian Thomas, KPTV. I think it's important to clarify PPD had no idea of this enforcement action by Border Patrol prior to it happening. And given everything that's happened in the last 24 hours, what's your message to federal officials if they are going to continue these types of traffic stops in terms of giving you a heads up if they're going to be in a certain area at a certain time?
Yes, so we did not have any information ahead of time. Both of these events, the shooting scene itself and then where the victims drove themselves to, were reported to us via the traditional dispatch system. It is always complex when multiple agencies are working within one jurisdiction. So this is not unique just to our federal partners, but, as police officers in the state of Oregon, we have authority throughout the state. So although I'm a Portland police officer, I'm designated as a state officer, so I could go do police work in Pendleton today. Typically, when we do that, we do provide a heads up, just an awareness, so that the other agency knows what's going on, so we don't face some of these situations such as this. So, we're continuing to communicate to our federal partners that any information they can provide ahead of time so we can be aware of, to provide, a greater level of safety and security for everyone involved, we are in favor of. We certainly can't mandate that or demand that, but that is a conversation that we've been having, and sometimes it has occurred and sometimes it has not. Yesterday was one of those where it didn't.
I have 2 questions. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to ask some questions. One, aside from the affiliation or link to that July shooting, did these 2 individuals have any other criminal background? Had they been charged? Had they been convicted of anything? Or was it just that suspicion with that
I have been advised that the woman was arrested for prostitution in Washington County, and that the male was present when a search warrant was served in Washington County. I don't know if they were together. I don't know if that was simultaneous, but that's the information that we've received.
And then my second question is about not just the tactics, but the rhetoric that the federal government has been using in relation to the immigration enforcement. How does that impact your ability to maintain your relationships with community members and to maintain trust?
Yeah, so the question is regarding, the messaging that we see coming from the federal government, and how does that impact our ability on a local level? And I would suggest that this is challenging, not just on the part of the federal government, but really a responsibility that we all have in how we portray these events, and particularly when it comes to law enforcement action. As I've said earlier, I'm tremendously proud of this profession, but I'm also well aware of the history of policing in our country, and some of the harms perpetrated at the hands of law enforcement, and recognizing that I want to recognize and really identify that fear and that concern that people share has legitimacy. So on the other hand, it's in a profession that is called upon daily 260,000 times or so this year. In the last year in the city of Portland were calls for service. So people look to us regularly to step into spaces that are very complex and very difficult, usually with a great deal of risk. And the men and women of the Portland Police Bureau do that with immense bravery and training and preparation. And I am so honored to be able to be a part of that with them. Anytime that we have messaging that jumps to conclusions, anytime that we make assumptions or assertions, then we are definitely putting the entire system at risk. You're putting the investigation at risk, you're putting the legitimacy and the other officers' safety at risk, and you're certainly putting the community safeties at risk. And I think this is the crux of what we're really struggling with in a lot of ways, is we are all trying to find an area of certainty, which I totally understand. We are all trying to find an area of certainty. But the reality is that many competing truths can be held at the same time. Immigration enforcement is not new to this country. There was immigration enforcement under the Biden administration. There was immigration enforcement under the Obama administration. This is not something new. The manner in which it's being done is certainly new and questionable in terms of its approach. And certainly the emphasis is new. But the reality is that this building down in South Waterfront has been around for a long time. So that's a truth. But there's also a truth in, once again, the behavior and the actions that we're seeing that's causing so much fear in our communities, not just in Portland, but around the country. That's true. There's a role for public order. There's a role for demonstrations and for protests and for an expression of that first. That's a truth. There's a role for law enforcement to be able to provide that safety and protection for all Portlanders. That's a truth. These things can all be held at the same time. And where we are losing our grip is when we hold so tightly to just our own truth, and not recognize that these others exist. And I will tell you, the Portland Police Bureau will always be committed to the rule of law, and will always be committed to recognizing these many truths and trying to balance them and hold them all lightly and honoring them all at the same time. I think that our community, our relationship with the community today is stronger than it has been in probably at least decades of my career. I am so grateful. I have been on the phone almost 24 hours, other than a slight bit of sleep, with community leaders from across the spectrum. And that's why, even sharing this information around this association is so difficult and painful for me, because I understand from what I have been told that fear that suddenly this is going to be some wholesale blaming, this wholesale approval of the actions that happened yesterday, and that is not the case. Nothing that I've said today should be warranted in any way to affirm whatever happened yesterday as part of the investigation. But it is factual information we have. It is factual information that I was asked, and I felt the need to respond.
So both the man and the woman shot yesterday, they were both involved in that July shooting that you mentioned. And can you explain what their role was in that shooting?
I cannot say that they were both involved in the shooting on July 11th. I apologize. What I'm saying is, through the investigation of the shooting on July 11th, there became a nexus to them. Whether they were involved, I do not know. As far as I am aware, they haven't been named as, suspects. They haven't been charged in it. But because of the information Portland police officers received on the July 11th incident from the victim, we then proceeded down the investigations, which led us to this information sharing with Washington County.
But they have not been confirmed as the shooters.
No, they have not been confirmed as the shooters.
And the victim who called to report the shooting, what did they say? What were the circumstances of it?
I don't have the details of that from the report. I just have been advised he was a Venezuelan immigrant. He did express to us that he believed that the people who shot at him were part of TDA.
Now that the mayor has explicitly said that he does not want ICE to operate in Portland, I'm curious, how does that impact your relationship with ICE and federal agencies, if at all? I mean, are you getting direction to back away a bit?
Yeah, so the question was, with the comments from the mayor regarding having ICE out of Portland, how does that impact our relationships? And I appreciate Mayor Wilson. I appreciate his leadership. And he's been very respectful of understanding the importance that I place upon relationships with all parties involved. And so therefore, he has not given me direction otherwise to continue to be available. I've been on the phone today with some of our federal partners. We'll continue to be, throughout the course of the weekend and through this investigation. And I think that's really in the best interest of all Portlanders so that we can try to provide as much information in as timely fashion as possible.
Joey, and then John.
Thanks, Chief. Joey Bucket, Point 6. The federal government's spoken a lot about this group, Tren de Aragua, on a national and international scale. Based on the facts that you've seen, like you just referenced, what kind of presence does this group have in the Portland area?
Well, we're learning more about that. We certainly can say that there is a presence. It would not appear to be as significant as maybe, some have been led to believe. I don't know if A.C. Simon has any more on that. You've been in conversation the last 24 hours, but you good with that? Yeah, so it is, a regional approach. I will say I appreciate support with Washington County and the, effort to try and figure out where some of these folks might be that are directly related. But, we're definitely aware, definitely engaged, even though I wasn't able to answer that question. I'm saying organizationally, we've got really skilled detectives that are working this and tracking this down.
Hey, Chief, John Adams, KGW, just to kind of build on that last question, are you familiar with any possible activities that TDA might be known as a group to be involved with specifically, either here or elsewhere?
No, yeah, the question is, do I have any specific knowledge of activities that TDA's been involved with, specifically locally or in the area? And I do not have anything specific more to share. What was communicated to us through the incident back in July with this victim, and as we have learned, is that oftentimes they will prey on their own Venezuelan immigrant population because they know that they have a reluctance to want to engage with law enforcement. But once again, this is something that we're getting up to speed on.
Dunby with K2, can you point us to any cases or instances of criminal activity involving Tren de Aragua? And second, do you denounce and condemn the use of force yesterday?
Two questions. Can I give a case or an example? I don't have a case for you specifically related to them. The other one is, can I condemn the use of force yesterday? No, I will not do that at this time. It's an ongoing investigation. We need to, as painful as it can be to hear these words from a police chief, we need to trust the system. And I understand how flat that can fall with so many people. Maybe I need to find a different terminology for that. But the reality is, I believe, as I see Max's eyes, I believe that this is the system that we have. It's the system that we're relying upon. It's the system that is in place. And I'm a systems thinker. I believe in the importance that not just, A equals B equals C, but that we look at it holistically. And there are so many so many aspects to the events of yesterday, just like there's so many aspects to the event of police officers' actions today. Not to draw a false equivalency, the events of yesterday, not only because of the seriousness, because of the effect on life, but also because of the national narrative and the intensity around it and all of the other collateral harms that we see happening. So I am going to continue to very much be committed and believe that the system can continue to work. And I have one quick example why I do that. And it was held right here in Portland, Oregon, in that building next door, where for 2 days, 3 Portland Police Command officers testified as the sole representatives for the city on why we did not need the National Guard deployed to the city of Portland. And based upon that testimony and based upon the excellent work of Portland Police Bureau members over the course of several months, a judge agreed with and cited in her report that the credibility of the Portland Police Bureau was definitely influential in that decision. And so the very fact that National Guard did not wind up on the streets of Portland is a testament to the behaviors and the actions of the Portland Police Bureau, and it's also a testament to the system continuing to work. So I'm going to continue to ask us and encourage us, and maybe I got to find another line, Max, sorry.
Please have a few more minutes, and then the gentleman in black.
Sean from the Capitol Chronicle. I was just curious, what changed from yesterday to today that allowed you to have this information about the nexus with these 2 individuals, and how did you get that information? Did you look at court documents? Did you talk to prosecutors? How do you?
Yeah, so the question is what changed from yesterday to today around the information. Well, might be a little bit disappointing, but as chief of police, I don't have my finger on the pulse of every single thing that happens in the organization every single day. And when I was asked that question yesterday by the reporter regarding my knowledge and understanding of TDA, I answered truthfully when I said that I wasn't aware of any information, because I wasn't. But I do like to follow up and be respectful of each of you, and my commitment is to give you the information I have when I have it, if I can. So came back to the office and said, hey, what do we know? Also at that time, I didn't have the names. We didn't have the names of the people. They'd been identified. Once they were identified, then we could search our information. Then there was conversation among our investigators, and that's kind of how it all came together.
DHS described, Jack Billy, Power 7. DHS described this as a self-defense shooting. Do you understand that to be the case?
I can't comment on the intent, of the officers, how they perceived the incident. That's certainly all going to be looked at, but that'll have to be borne out in the investigation.
Max, a couple more questions, and we have to get Chief out of here.
Have you asked for any of the body-worn camera or security surveillance, or have you seen it? Do you intend to seek it or release it?
Well, as I said, FBI is lead, so any of that evidentiary information is going to be dependent upon them in terms of, release of that information. But I can tell you at this point, we've not seen any video or retrieved any video of the incident.
Joey, Alex, and then we're going to call it.
You mentioned getting caught up to speed on the connection with these 2 individuals in particular, but what kind of prior knowledge, if any, does the Portland Police Bureau have about Trende Arawa presence, activity in the Portland area?
Well, I hate putting Rob on the spot. He just took over this role of AC Investigations. He's had some conversations over the last 24 hours, but I don't know if there's anything to add or if that's been answered.
I'm not aware of the historical practices of TDA in the Portland metro area, but again, I'm new in this role coming from another spot, so I could follow up with you and get you that information. But
Well, maybe to rephrase, was the Portland Police Bureau aware of TDA activity and presence prior to this incident with CBP yesterday?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry, cut you off, but that one I can answer. Yeah, we were, because that's how the information came to us. I mean, literally, we're on the scene last night. Rob was out there, having a conversation. There's a sergeant out there. I mean, this is going to be a little bit disappointing, because it may, think that everything is just magical. But through that part of that conversation, sergeant used to be assigned to a unit that did a lot of shooting reviews, and began to connect the points. And so, I think I remember we had this conversation. This came up. Then we were able to reach out to the investigators. So definitely the Portland Police Bureau had some of that information. We have a really robust shooting review process. We work with our ceasefire program. We work with federal partners in that way. This may have been touched on back then. We can go back and look. But certainly top of mind for us now is, and as Rob said, we can get you more information as it becomes available. Yeah, the gentleman was shot in the arm, and we applied a tourniquet upon arrival, and the female was shot in the chest. I was told today that they both had to have surgery, but as I said earlier, they're in stable condition. We're grateful for that.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. I do not anticipate any other media availability for the day, but as always, we will keep your newsrooms informed if anything comes up. And I will be working with our incident management team tonight, monitoring protest activity, and we'll, of course, keep everyone updated if necessary. With that, thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.